This is a DMB Society podcast.
I got a sister named Jane.
And this is the pod that Jane likes. Hey everybody, welcome back to the pod that Jane likes. This is Matt along with Jeanette, Trisha, and Sean, and you are listening to the first of several Gorge recap episodes because we just had one of the biggest weekends in the history of the Dave Matthews Band. The Gorge Weekend has come and gone, and we were left with quite a bit to chat about, and we thought, this is way too big for just one episode. We've got to do this in multiple segments, multiple episodes. And so here we are with the first installment of that. Guys, come on in. You've been traveling. You are back from the Gorge. I partook from afar and had some of the most FOMO that I've ever had in my life. But I'm glad you were back here. I'm glad that we are able to talk about it. Give me one word from each of you as to how you're feeling after Gorge Weekend. Sean, go first.
Fulfilled. Sean got nothing.
That's my word. I think I'm just speechless. I think
all right.
Speechless. There you go.
Happy,
which admittedly is not what you want to say leading into a podcast where the whole premise is
true.
So if you've tuned in to hear talking about the Gorge, you have come to the wrong podcast because you're all speechless here. And but if this is your first time listening to us and you just partook of Gorge Weekend and you're joining us for the first time, again, welcome. We are so happy that you're here. This is your home for all things DMB. We are here talking about all different things, shows. We do album discussions. We talk about merch. We do it all. We even have interviews that we conduct from time to time. So stay tuned for things like that. And so here we are, Gorge recap. What we want to do here is this episode is going to focus completely on night one and overall setting the stage for Gorge Weekend. We'll talk about some of the nuances of what it's like being there, what it was like being there for the folks on this podcast who were there. And then we'll have a separate recap episode for night two, and we'll have a separate recap episode for night three. And we may even have another bonus for you as well. So again, stay tuned for that. So let's talk vibes, guys. Take me through, Jeanette, you're arriving into town. What is going on in Seattle and the surrounding area as you head out to the Gorge?
Okay, first of all, I've never had a trip to the Pacific Northwest that was so easy and breezy and efficient. And flight was on time. I land in Seattle. I get the car. I pick up Sean and Trisha. We go shopping. We get all our food for the weekend. We head on out to the Gorge, and it was so easy. We had the best drive there. It's a gorgeous drive from Seattle to the Gorge. We get to camp, and everybody was there. We just had a amazing night zero, and what I will say is Trisha said this when we got out of the car for the first time ever, coming from Seattle to Quincy, Washington, which is where the Gorge is. How dry it is. I think Trisha said like all the water has been sucked out of my eyeballs as soon as we got
and my mouth. It was like the saliva sucked out of your mouth, and then all of a sudden your eyeballs are dry.
Yeah. And I think if I remember right, that was just when you rolled the window of the car down.
Yeah, basically. I think she opened the car door and was like,
yeah, I really, and I think that was a nice reminder of how dry it is. And I actually think we did really good overall with the weekend with staying hydrated.
We did.
I think that it wasn't really an issue, but it's because we drank a lot and we're prepared. But yes, it was hot as hell. It was hot.
It was probably one of the hottest gorges ever. That's saying a lot because it's the desert. But it was probably one of the hottest gorges ever, I have to say.
Yeah.
Guys, these are the details that our listeners are loving to hear. Just all of
Well-
the moisture. We're gonna have to add like it's like beyond the slopeability report. It's gonna be
Yeah.
the moisture report as
People
to
like
like
talk about the
how
weather.
humid or how dry any given venue is. We're gonna have to definitely add
Bring
that.
chapstick or to not bring chapstick.
Exactly. The chapstickometer. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, yeah, getting there was awesome and easy. Security was pretty long to get into our campground, but you're already out there, so you make the best of what's around. You pop some beers and you're and you're hanging out in line. But once you got there, the vibes were just really peaceful
great.
and ready.
Yeah.
Really great.
So Sean, this is your first Gorge experience, and like me, I've never been, but I've heard all of the the stories about flying in and then having to drive for a long time and having to make sure that you buy everything that you need ahead of time and all of that. Was this your expectation, or were you what were you feeling at that point?
Yeah, I think I was glad Jeanette mentioned the drive-in, because it is certainly a big part of the whole experience there. I don't think the Gorge is convenient to anybody. And I think that's actually part of the appeal, right? Even if you live in Seattle or in the Seattle area, you're not near the Gorge. It's still a 3-ish hour drive from Seattle to the Gorge. I think the things that really jump out at you is the beauty of that drive. It's unbelievable how scenic the drive into the Gorge is. And then you reach a point in that drive where you quickly realize that all of that beauty kind of dissipates and a new type of beauty kind of is introduced into what you're looking at. But that beauty is just desert. As far as you can see, you're kind of in the desert. Once you're there, I think the surrounding areas, the campgrounds, everything that kind of surrounds the actual Gorge Amphitheatre is a lot like the Gorge Amphitheatre itself. It's actually a lot like the documentary that came out a couple of years ago about the Gorge titled Enormous. It is just that. Everything there is enormous. The campgrounds are enormous. The venue's enormous. If you are walking from one place to another, you're doing an enormous amount of walking. Everything just feels like it's on such a grand scale. However, it didn't ever really feel daunting because you're always doing this in a herd of people. Sometimes it was just the three of us, and sometimes we were surrounded by 20 or 30 friends and people that we've done shows with for years. But it just felt like no matter what you were doing, you were always doing this in some sort of pack. It was like we were moving as a herd. Right. And it's really, really incredible.
That's awesome. So great to hear. And, so great to hear. Again, I keep listening to what we're saying and realizing that this trek isn't as daunting as it needs to be if you prep correctly. I think is the big takeaway for me, at least, being sort of an outsider here. Awesome.
Another thing I want to add, just really quickly, Tricia mentioned night zero. You're getting there, you're setting up your campsites. That part was a lot of fun too, because as you get to your campsite, you're quickly realizing that these are your neighbors for the next 4 days. And everybody is decorating their tent, whether you like it or not. Everyone, or most people, they were decorating their tents with flags and banners, and you end up having a lot of conversations around that, whether it's other bands that they like and they're hanging up a flag, or whether they're hanging up flags for sports teams that they follow. That kind of becomes your neighborhood almost, right? Like every morning when you walk to the shower and then you walk back to your tent, you're kind of taking the same walk, passing the same tents, the same campsites. You're seeing all these flags and banners everywhere. So I thought that was such a cool part of the experience, the way that everybody kind of personalized their tent and everything that was surrounding their tent. They kind of make that little square, however many square footage campsite that each person has their own.
Okay, so you guys are settled. You're getting ready for night one. You're hanging out with some friends, and of course, night one, we have to mention here a momentous occasion for Jeanette. Show number 300, which is just mind-blowing when you start to think about it. Show number 300, night one. Jeanette, congratulations.
Thank you.
Take us through that. I mean, what does that what does that feel like?
Well, she was Go ahead, Jeanette.
No, Trisha, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, well, we'll get to it, but she was crying by song too. So
Oh, that's true. But even just leading up to it was pretty I don't know how to explain it. Not surreal, but like humbling a little bit. Like it was a lot of people came up to me, a lot of listeners, and knew that it was my 300 show. And so I got a lot of people congratulating me, and I don't know, it's just so funny to congratulate me on that because it's like this weird choice that I made. But it was also so nice and I felt such community and I felt such closeness with everybody, not just you guys but listeners as well, that people kind of knew that was happening, and they were rooting for me for songs. Like they were like, you need Let You Down, we hope he plays it tonight for you, you know what I mean? Like things like that were just so sweet. And so leading up to it, it was very humbling. And then when we got there, it was just, it's just incredible to experience that milestone at such a historical venue and such a huge venue like the Gorge. Like I never thought after even 100 that I would still be going this far and that, I would actually get to celebrate it at a venue like that.
So awesome. And of course,
really?
You've been to the Gorge many, many times, and Trisha had been once before, but this was Sean's first time, as we said before. So Sean, give us the play-by-play as you're cresting the hill. I saw some footage. What's going through? I mean, what's going through your mind?
It's really difficult to explain. I think that the best I came up with, because a million people that had been to the Gorge that knew that it was my first time kind of seeing all of this and taking it all in, they asked the same question that night and in the following nights. I think the only thing that I could really equate it to, and it's very similar but also extremely different, is what it's like to take in a show at the Sphere. And what I mean by that is it's so mind-blowingly different than anything else you've ever done that it's very difficult to just kind of sum up into words. I think when you get to the top of that hill and you're looking down over the entire venue, you're looking down over the entire gorge, and you see the river and you see all of these mountain peaks. None of it looks real. It looks like the stage is there and there's this incredibly high definition painting behind the stage. It's almost too beautiful to think that it's real. But it is, as you're walking around, obviously everything's very real. I think for me personally, from a distance, whether they were live streams, whether they were audio streams, whether it was back in the days of collecting tapes, I have consumed so much of the Gorge throughout the course of my fandom in this, following around this band, that I simultaneously felt really small, being in a place that was so brand new. And also it felt very familiar. So many historic moments kind of flashed through my head as you look out for the first time. So really surreal, definitely not something that I'll ever forget. I will say though, for as incredible as that moment was, I almost felt the exact same way every night. It was like every night you got to that same rush. You could feel your heart racing a little bit as you got to the top of the hill, maybe because I'm out of shape and you have to climb a lot, or maybe because it's just so jaw-droppingly beautiful that it kind of catches you off guard every time. So that was one thing that jumped out. It doesn't get old. And I know Jeanette has been to a million shows at the Gorge, but I would imagine that it's that way all the time.
Every
it just blows your mind.
Single time. It takes my breath away. It's the best way to describe it. It literally, like, I tear up every single time I crest the hill for the first time, every time I'm there. And I remember, and now my favorite thing is, since the first time I've done it, now my favorite thing is watching other people do it for the first time. So it was really awesome to be there. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. It was awesome to be there for Sean's first time cresting the hill. And I remember smacking him with my show 300 sign saying, "Told you pictures don't do it any justice."
That part's true.
Yeah. I'm like sitting here getting a little emotional right now, just thinking about your 300th show, Sean's first time cresting the hill and being there, because of people that came up to everybody that was so invested and cared so much about your 300th show and so much about your first time, Sean. Like it was so
true.
it was so sweet to see all that like community of love. In fact, when I wasn't with you, Jeanette, listeners came up to me thinking I was you and saying happy 300th show. like people were really like into that, and then like so many people wanted to see Sean crest the hill. Like it was, I just am like kind of getting choked up with all like the love that was there that day one. So this is not even, the show didn't even start yet, and we're feeling like all of this.
Yes, we're already having the best time. It didn't even start yet.
Well, I'm feeling emotional because Sean said he was talking about all of the Gorge stuff that he has consumed over the years. So Sean, what do you think? We have a little conversation right now about the 2002 Gorge box set before we talk about the other shows.
Matt, if you don't think that I brought up my affinity for that box set daily
times,
you'd be mistaken.
We'll talk in the next episode when You Never Know played, and
we'll talk about the box sets.
He had goosebumps all down his arm, and he was like, 2002, you never know. Like, he literally said it out loud. So
for that's sort of an inside joke, but Sean and I love talking about box sets, and the girls don't love talking about box sets. So it's just it's one of those things that anytime can slip it into the conversation, I will. Anyways, we are now at the point in time where we should talk about this show, guys. Night one. And typically we do not go through and talk about every single song on the set list, but for this weekend, I think we're going to make an exception because I do think that there was some calculation here. I think that every song had a purpose throughout the 3 nights. And so I think that every song deserves to be mentioned, honestly, because it was that momentous an occasion. And we're going to try to touch on as much as we can. That's why we're splitting this into multiple episodes for that very reason. So the weekend starts here. Track 1, song 1 on the 2025 Gorge box set starts with Seek Up. We get an 18-minute Seek Up, and what a way to kick things off.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that kind of caught me off guard was actually how rare Seek Up openers have been. I was kind of caught off guard in the moment when I had looked up the fact that this was actually the first Seek Up opener in 4 years. It's a song that seems like it fits so well into that slot, but it's been 4 years. And I will say, stats aside, I just thought that this was a great version. This entire show was broadcasted on DMB radio on Sirius XM. So if you have not already heard it, it's available now on demand and kind of floating all over the internet. But I just thought it was a great version, a version that stayed really tight rather than maybe focusing on how big it could grow. And I think that those are some of my favorite Seek Ups. And this one I thought was great.
Yeah, I had a big reaction to Seek Up. If you've been here a while, you know that is a song that I feel a lot of feelings for. And so happy to hear that. And then goes in the song that Jane likes, which of course, this is when Jeanette starts crying. but when Seek Up started, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Quintessential DMB, old DMB. And then to have Jane come next, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, hell yeah.
We're 2 songs in and we're still on Remember 2 Things. So we were like, yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, it was great.
This is amazing. I mean, this opening run, good God.
Really, really awesome stuff. And I think really important to mention, we had talked about this last time, but one thing that had just started to happen when we recorded last, there was is it Shoreline, guys, or is it the show before Shoreline, where Tim grabs an acoustic guitar for the first time with DMB? It is Shoreline. So we get Big Eyed Fish after song that Jane likes into Bartender, Tim on the acoustic guitar on Big Eyed Fish. And this is really the first time that we have a really in-depth look at what Tim is doing on the acoustic guitar, because we had very limited crowd videos. We had very limited recordings from before, so it was really hard to tell what he was doing. But the majority of his acoustic playing is really this percussive, almost like a Latin style guitar, which is not what I was expecting. I was fully expecting him to have his Martin that he typically plays, Dave and Tim, but this almost flows into the mix a little bit better, and you can hear it a little bit separated out from Dave's guitar, and I'm guessing that's why they did it, because it would maybe get lost otherwise. So anyways, we get Big Eyed Fish with Tim on the acoustic, and that goes into Bartender. Again, what an epic opening run already. I mean, these are quintessential classic DMB songs,
and we're not done.
No, and I was just gonna say, and the emotion that is pulled out in a song like Seek Up, you know, the outro to Seek Up specifically, and then the outro to Bartender specifically, you know, this is stirring up. I mean, you already just talked about how the emotions are running wild as you're walking into the place. I mean, you're just continuing to go up and up and up that ladder. So you know, then we go into Drive In Drive Out, and we go to Say Goodbye with Tim on the acoustic. And then I think we get probably, I still think, I mean, we'll talk about night 2, but one of the most shocking returns ever is the return of the song Break Free. So it's a tour debut, but the return of the 2006 Fenway Park, not the Fenway Park, 2006 Fenway Park live tracks horn outro, just out of nowhere. What I mean, this is like,
welcome back, horns.
Talk about things that you never ever expected to hear again. If you go back and listen to our Walk Around the Moon review when Break Free was put on that album, and we talked about, you know, them really making a decision to change the horn outro, and you know, it was going to take some getting used to, and we got used to it, and it was what it was, and all of that. And then all of a sudden, here it is. We're back in 2006 with the old outro. I mean, just awesome.
It makes me think they made the decision to leave it out. It makes me think they just forgot it existed, because and then they listened back and were like, oh yeah, that was so good, let's do that again. Because I don't know why you would stop and make a conscious decision to stop that and then bring it back.
Maybe Rashawn was just like, let's do this for the album, and then like just decided, you know what, let's throw him for a loop, we can surprise him. The minute the horn started, Jeanette screams, oh my god, the horns. Like really loud.
Guilty.
And then we all just stopped. I mean, you guys know this story, but when they did the accident, remember Break Free accidentally leaked?
Yes. And you had a visceral reaction.
I hadn't, a literal allergic reaction. I had to run to a convenience store and get Benadryl because my lips swelled. And I didn't obviously want that to happen to me, or, you know what I mean? I didn't know it was going to happen, but obviously my body only knew 2006 horns. So when that happened, I first of all, that Break Free version was gorgeous. I mean, it really was. Like, they haven't played it in how many shows? I mean, they
nailed it.
Yep.
Nailed it.
And like verbatim, Rashawn solo from Fenway. Like, they had to have listened to Fenway and to get to bring it back.
Unbelievable.
Everybody mentions, and I did too. Everybody immediately mentions that Fenway 06 version, as they should. It's the most iconic version of Break Free. But one thing that I think is worth noting is that Break Free actually lived in that form with that outro, with the horns playing that style, for 10 years. If you fast forward, if you get away from that Fenway 06 version, they played it in all of the years leading up to 2016 and including 2016 with that outro. Now, after 2016, it goes away. But not only did people love it in 2006, but it was the only way that we knew that song for 10 years. In 2006, it was performed that way. 2016, it was performed that way. It was not performed in 2017. It did not return until 2022. And when it returned in 2022, first of all, the band was a little bit different because Buddy had joined. Buddy was now included in Break Free. And after the little Buddy solo, we got this brand new horn section, this brand new horn outro. So I just wanted to make mention that that, without question, the most iconic version, but it was really 10 years of Break Free being played off and on again, but with that horn outro that people really fell in love with.
And Sean, I think it's important to add to that, not to nerd out here, but Break Free is an interesting song because you have all the 2006 performances, and then you get a huge break. You have 3 performances at the Caravans, and then 2016 is when you have, I think it's 8 performances during the summer, and that's it. You don't have any other Break Free performances. So even though it lived that way for such an extended period of time, it was very rare to hear that. And so it is wild that it's back. I also wanted to mention too, this song is near and dear to my heart for a lot of reasons, especially because Fenway Live Tracks is like everything to me.
Sure.
But this song, I think, is so important in the history of DMB because when Rashawn came on board, Leroy had an idea that he wanted another horn to create a whole section. And this is a textbook example of what he was looking to do with another horn and feeding off each other and harmonizing with each other and trading solos, which is what you see Leroy laid the foundation for obviously the entire horn, everything for DMB. But when you see Jeff and Rashawn doing what they do now, it's because of this song back in 2000.
Thank you for mentioning that.
And so I just,
Good point.
being super nostalgic, it's like that. It was my favorite moment of the weekend.
I think that the other thing that I wanted to quickly mention, Matt, before we wrap up this opening run, you make a great point with Break Free. In some ways, us getting a revisit of how that song was originally intended for everyone to hear it. This whole opening run, a lot of it felt that same way to me. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Tim was on that acoustic guitar that you mentioned a little bit earlier. And even more specifically than being on the acoustic guitar, because he's playing this little nylon guitar that we really haven't seen a whole lot of Tim play prior to this. This opening run, if you go back and look at it, now Jane is the exception. I certainly would love to hear Tim on acoustic or dueling acoustic guitars on Jane. But so much of this opening run, whether it is Big Eyed Fish, like you mentioned, Say Goodbye was like the real standout for me in this opening run because of the added dimensions and the space that Tim creates. I was so mesmerized watching and listening Tim play on Say Goodbye. It's he just did such an incredible job of adding layers, yet allowing everybody else on stage to breathe. Pretty remarkable stuff. I know that we talked about it in the last episode when the acoustic guitar came out a little bit earlier during this West Coast run, but here we have our first released show where you can really kind of lock in and hear the difference that Tim on acoustic makes. I had an enormous smile on my face for what felt like this entire opening run. I could not be more happy.
Yeah. And then after Break Free, I think I blacked out after that. Like there was a moment on it. Well, I mean, like I don't remember so much to say bridge too much word up. And I think it's like when there's this doesn't happen all the time, but there are a couple moments throughout this weekend where I don't remember. I had to process what just happened. And getting the 2006 horns back was actually a moment to like, whoa, like, holy shit.
100%. I don't remember. Yeah. I don't remember so much to say too much word up either.
Right. Like I don't.
That happened? I don't remember.
Right. It wasn't.
Break Free does things to your body, Trisha.
It does. It
clearly.
To my body.
For good or for bad.
I don't remember it. Yeah. All I remember is we were definitely thirsty, and then we went for a walk at the end of Lover Lay Down. And then we were at concessions for this big liberation.
Yeah.
Which I think it's time to talk about.
Oh man. All right. So we've got as you said, we had so much bridge, too much word up, a classic 2025 run there. Lover Lay Down again, Tim on acoustic.
Gorgeous
stuff. Great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I think if you're talking about the beauty of a song, Lover Lay Down is just so sweet and beautiful, and Jeff's work on the soprano there is always awesome. So adding that added dimension of Tim on acoustic, I think makes it even more beautiful. And then we get
segue right into it
to the love bomb of all love bombs.
Yep.
486 shows. The last one being 2015.
10 years.
I did it. 10 years.
I did it.
I told you I did. and you know what was this again? We get a liberation at the Gorge. That did anybody ask for this? I mean, I
Sure
know you
didn't.
guys said you had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching the videos. This is also important because it's the first post Boyd I did it. And
Yes.
so important to note that Rashawn sang,
Mhm.
or if you can call it singing, rapped
Right.
the third verse. So you know, really interesting to see that. And here we are, guys. I did it, has returned. Fear not, it's back.
Well, I'm curious because I was out in concessions and I was screaming, singing the song, and nobody really out in the concessions was like getting it because why are you
Yeah.
freaking out over I did it? But I liked the way it was sounding, and there was something like visceral about like, I don't know, it just was like sounding good and resonating with me. And I just wonder what it was like in the pit. Like,
Oh,
were you guys into it
we
or
were 100% into it. It's like
okay?
it was like even though it was I did it, it was so almost like funny because you were like, I did it, that we got so into it. We were singing it at the top of our lungs. You would have thought it was
Yeah.
our favorite song ever.
Right.
Like, and then we were all like in this anticipation of who's gonna sing Boyd's part, you know. So that was because we didn't know it was gonna be a buddy. Is it gonna be Rashawn?
Yeah.
So it happened to be Rashawn, and he did a really good job. And it was just fun. Like I have no other word to describe
Yeah,
that
it
it
was
was
fun.
fun because you know, it's feel what you want about I did it. It's still like I hadn't heard it in 10 years. So to hear a
Right.
song you haven't
Right.
heard in 10 years, whether you like it or not, is still fun. And it's
It's fun.
upbeat, you know. Yeah, it was fun.
Right.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
And
But it was
something-
definitely like, who asked for this?
And didn't we also so I did it was not on the printed set list, and we got word that
Mhm.
it may have been intentionally left off by whoever prints the set list,
Yes.
just to throw Dave off a little bit.
We don't know
But
for sure,
We,
but
we don't know
did-
for sure about
yeah,
that.
we did get because Sean and I both actually got printed sets after the show.
Thank you,
and
Emily.
Thank you, Emily. We each got I got one for my 300, then Sean got one for his first Gorge show. And we realized like, wait, it's not on here. So we were like, how did that happen? And then it turns out that Dave did actually write it on the written set list, but when whoever prints the set list wants to print it, they left I did it off. We don't know if it's intentional. We're kind of speculating that it was intentional. It could have been a mistake, but I kind of like that was I like that. I like to
Let's
think it was
pretend it was
intentional. And then Dave was like, "Where's I did it?" and wrote it back in on all the sets.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
So,
you know
yeah.
they had. I mean, that's a long time. You know they had to have rehearsed it. You know they.
Right.
Like,
I mean, they had to have it
Yeah.
because it sounded
Had to.
great.
Yeah.
I can't lie; it sounded great.
It sounded great.
I mean,
liked
for
it.
yeah, like for I did they nailed it.
Sure,
with
I
the
did it. It was
song.
great.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
like
kind of
they-
think the lyrics resonate for
They
2025.
do,
To be
and you're
honest,
right. And I
they
didn't think of that
do.
until you said that, and they do. You're right.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Potion that'll rock. You know.
no, it was more like
Mixing
I
up a
think
bunch of magic stuff.
actually. No, actually, I was thinking that if you were to think about, like, maybe I have a different interpretation now, but I never did a single thing to change the ugly ways of the world. Like, maybe
Yeah,
we're all
it's
sitting
great.
back doing nothing.
This is why I love Trisha.
Right.
She
This is the
listen-
classic Pod the Jam Likes moment.
I know, but I love that because like I wouldn't have thought of that at all, and that's really something.
You know
All
what's
right.
really impressive is that we have probably spent 3 times the amount of time talking about the I Did It Liberation in comparison to how long the song actually is.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. We
True.
spent more time on it than it is. And so moving on, after that we moved to Dancing Nancy's, which sounded great. Really good performance of Nancy's. And then I think one of the most important moments of the weekend happens
Mhm.
for not only Jeanette and her 300th show, but we get Jake Rennick-Simpson coming on. Now, Jake, who had played violin for Lucas Nelson the previous week at Big Sky when Dave played his solo show and had guested with Dave at that point, now comes to guest with the band for the first time. And boy, did he put on a show with this Lie in Our Graves. I mean, this was absolutely beautiful. And to hear this song with a violin again is just such a treat. I always have a, usually the song goes right into Tim's solo, and it it doesn't hit the same as when like Boyd would just like, come out of the middle of the jam part into his solo. He would start at a couple of bars early and it would just like explode into this. And like I just remember, some of my favorite moments were hearing Line Our Graves. I would feel like I was like floating on the ceiling of whatever barn we were in. And so to have that back was incredible. Jeanette, what was your first reaction to this? Because obviously this is your favorite song. This is your 300th show. And what an epic moment with Jake here.
I think I said before we left and on our episode leading up to the Gorge that I wanted Lie in Our Graves night 2 because I wanted to hear it with Bella. And so when Jake came out, I had a feeling it was going to be Lie in Our Graves. So I kind of like sat with that for a minute. And I got to be honest, it was supposed to happen this way. It was the best. Hearing it with a violin again made my heart soar. Especially the part, Matt, I know you're talking about like the jam part with Boyd, but especially the part in between verse 1 and 2. That Boyd has a whole part, like a written out part. And we haven't heard that in so long. So to hear that part again, I was jumping up and down so hard at that part because it just like to hear it again was just amazing and made my heart just soar. Like I can't explain it. So I hearing that violin again it was really something. It was really a gift.
Like I said, we were at concessions where I did it, and to hear what Sean said earlier about everything being enormous, like I didn't think we were going to get back to Jeanette. Like getting in and out of that pit is actually insane. It's very hard. It is not for the weak. It is not for the weary. And I'm just glad we made it back for Lie in Our Graves to see you have that moment and for it to be on, not night 2, not night 3, but on night 1. And I'll tell you, we've had a couple people guest on violin here and there, but Jake is special. He's a special one. There is something about him playing. He really, really is. So we're obviously going to talk about Jake every single night, but wow, that was I feel like, to your point, I think we were all soaring.
Yeah, and when the song started, I think the discussion that a lot of us were having is that this song just makes so much sense for some of the other guests that we were going to have over the course of the weekend. I think a lot of people predicted, could this be something with Bella? Could this be something with a member from Goose? Could this be something that we get a little bit later in the week? And this was perfect. This was, as Matt always says, like this was quintessential DMB. This immediately transported you back to decades ago in consuming this band and this particular song. And we're going to obviously talk a lot about Jake, but in addition to the skills that he brings, which are so glaring and come off the screen if you're watching a live stream, or come right through your radio if you're listening on Sirius XM. In addition to that, he has this demeanor to himself that is so reminiscent in some ways of what we used to see.
He's a little bit of a showman.
There's a little bit of a stomp going on. It all feels so homey if you're a DMB fan. If you've been following this band for as long as we have, there was something so familiar, even though it was the first time that we were seeing Jake in this exact setting. It almost felt like we had seen him a bunch of times before. And by the time Graves was over, or not over because they didn't complete it, and we'll get to that later, but by the time that this version was complete, it was like he was just a part of all of it, right? It was like the break-in period for Jake lasted a few minutes, and now Jake is Jake, and it's there's Jake. He's right there.
It's with Jake. Yes.
Right.
That's how it felt.
Graves with Jake. No big deal.
No big deal. He's been here forever.
I think it's important to note with this, I'm going to go back to a couple of examples. So earlier this summer, out of nowhere in Holmdel, Jason Crosby comes out and plays Pig, and you're instantly transported back. Oh my gosh, like I forgot that this song really features a violin. And so, there's that aspect of it, the sort of the nostalgia there. But then I think it's really important too, Sean, what you were touching on with Jake and what he was doing in his all weekend, his fills, making the song his own. If you go back to the first ever violin performance post Boyd with Anne-Marie Calhoun at the Hollywood Bowl, she comes out, the crowd goes crazy because this is the first time that we're hearing a violin with DMB since Boyd left. But Anne-Marie did an amazing job. but she was playing essentially the exact album version of Ants Marching at that point. And it's important to note in this conversation, Ants is the next song on the set list with Jake. And so seeing Jake up there doing his own thing, and really, I think this is the like the biggest step that we've seen with a violin since Boyd, right? Like this
1000%.
this feels so different from any of the other guest performances. This was special. The whole weekend obviously was special, and Jake's performances especially were special. But we're gonna look back to this Line Our Graves as like, potentially the first moment of something really special with D&B. I am almost certain of it. So like I said, then we get into Ants next. And again, Jake tears it up. So great to hear. I mean, Ants, the back and forth of the violin and the horn on Ants Marching is what hooked so many of us back in the day to this band. And I just, Ants with a violin now is so special, so awesome. And did you guys have any immediate thoughts on Ants?
Well, I think when a violin comes out, this is the first thing that pops in everyone's head, right? This is the song that when you see that a violin's joining the band, this is kind of what you think you're going to get. So good on DMB and good on Jake for taking a moment that as soon as we saw the violin, I think everybody had flashes of Ants in their head. So good on all of the people involved for kind of even surpassing what I think was in our heads. I think that they really elevated things with this version. This closing run of the show kicked off with Jake being out for Graves and being out for Ants. I think it more than set the table for the weekend that we had ahead of us. I think it really elevated what this night one was. Which is saying something because there were an awful lot of big memorable moments in this night, but Ants really rose to the occasion. I know in that moment, it was the first time that I kind of paused and just completely turned around to see the entire gorge, whether it was people on the floor, there's this entire mountainside of people that are in various places in the lawn taking in the show. It was a pretty surreal thing to watch. Seemingly every person singing the words. And of course you get to the people in every direction part where everyone's singing. Really, really, really special.
I'm like, I don't think I remember this, Ants, but I think it's because Line Our Graves was so incredible. Like, again, like I have some processing time after, but I just want to mention that we saw Jake come out for Line Our Graves in Big Sky, Montana. It was just Dave and Jake.
Yep.
But like the whole band behind him and the stomping and the whole, it was like, to your point, like he was just
exactly.
It was right. Like it was.
Whoa.
It was Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah, it was Dave Matthews Band.
Yep.
It was Dave Matthews Band. Like it was a gorgeous. He played gorgeous performances in Big Sky, but like to see him with the band, it did have a different feeling. And so I think I just danced my Ants off to Ants because I was already like, the Dave Matthews Band's back with a violin. So we were just like, that was fun.
Yeah.
So after Ants, we moved to Gravedigger and Everyday. And then I think an exceptional way to close here, Joyride and So Right as the final two songs of the main set. Awesome stuff. I think also one really interesting thing, we'll talk about the encore in a second, but the average song debut, which is a stat that the Almanac keeps track of, the average song debut from this show is 1998. May of 1998 is the average song debut. So this whole show is old DMB, which is so great. There's also no songs that were written before 2008. There's no stand up. And interestingly enough, as people are sort of dissecting the set from afar, there's no Before These Crowded Streets songs that get played.
Right. And we mentioned this a lot. We were like, wow, how is this like one of the best sets we've ever seen? And there's not even a song from their best album.
Incredible stuff. And so then we get into the encore, We have Dave on electric, obviously for Some Devil, and then Two Step gets played as the end. And you think like, oh my gosh, this show has been so epic. They're probably going to close with like, a lighter song or something like that. Nope, just
Nope.
two step, 15-minute two step to.
They're like, oh, your feet hurt.
Yeah,
Here we go.
right, to close everything out.
Yeah,
man, so great. This show, just sort of waking up, and I listened to about half of the show, and then I went to bed because I was on the East Coast, and to wake up and see the rest of the set, I was just like, holy shit!
Yeah.
And then to think about it, and to think about how everything was old, and there was no Before These Crowded Streets, and all this other stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, like what is this setting up for? For the rest of the weekend, and we certainly found that out, and we'll be talking about that in our night 2 recap. But overall impressions of night 1, Trisha, where is your head at this point when you're walking out of there?
Well, we actually went live the next morning to recap the night before, and I thought, literally, I think it was consensus, like this is in the running for best show of tour. Like,
we had a whole conversation about it.
Like just fully top to bottom. There was a lot of great shows this tour, but there was a lot of great shows that maybe had like a 3, 4, 5 show song run that you're like, this was like constant.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you had to choose like Gravedigger and Every Day being the low part of it, they were still very good. Like they were still great performances, actually. So I walked away. My first impressions was like, this is awesome.
And good song placement on those songs, even though those were, I think,
completely agreed. I think I repeatedly said to anybody that would listen, I can go home now, but I can't go home now because I still got Bella and Goose. But I could go home now. But it was like I couldn't even process that we still had Bella and Goose coming up. Because the show was so good, and I was like, there's nothing that's going to top this.
Yep, absolutely. So now before we wrap up today, I did want to take a minute for the hottest segment that's been sweeping the nation here towards the second half of the 2025 tour. That's right. You all asked for more. You're going to get more. It's Matt's Merch Minute. Here we go.
Here we go.
I'm going to cover the entire weekend really quick because I think that a lot of this is applicable to the entire weekend. So before you guys even walked in the gates, there was an email that went out from DMB describing all of the merch that was going to be available specific to the Gorge. So I'm begging for just a Guilford shirt, and the Gorge gets a hoodie, a t-shirt, a long sleeve, a blanket, a koozie, stickers, and a Frisbee, all with Gorge stuff all over it. Again, I'm just asking for a Guilford shirt next year. If, God willing, we're back at the Gorge, back at Guilford. I just want a shirt. I know you can print them, DMB. Like, just print me one. I don't know. Anyways, so there's all these offerings. I know that people have been collecting the koozies. People have been collecting the stickers. I think it's really cool that they do these for the big venues. And I know a lot of the stuff was selling out. Sean, you were looking for a long sleeve Gorge tee, right? That you couldn't find, even though it was listed on there. So I know that a lot of this stuff flew. And then of course, because it was a big weekend, we had quite a few posters to choose from for the weekend. So we'll start off with night 1. Dylan Fant did a really great poster with a whole lot of stuff going on. Definitely go check that out. There's killer whales, there's elephants, there's fire dancers, there's a tree. This was a really cool poster, and there was a foil available for this, which was I think something special. I saw a couple of pictures of it in person, and it really popped. So this was really cool. Then there was a Todd Slater poster for the whole weekend, which is of a horse, which was interesting. Usually the horses are reserved for SPAC, but here we are out at the Gorge.
Horses are also pretty
horses.
Wild horses is like a big thing out there. So horses are pretty,
Yeah, you had to ride horses out west back in the day.
Wild horses couldn't drag me away.
Right.
The only way around.
They ended up being on the poster for the Gorge. Anyways, there are many different colorways of this one, multiple foils, different colorways, and this is a really cool print as well. Then my favorite of the weekend is the Night 2 print from Jim Mazza, or Mazza, I don't even know how to say that correctly, but this one is classic Jim. He has sort of these recurring characters that are always showing up on these posters. There's this like one-eyed monster guy. There's this wise old man seemingly with a beard and a pipe. He is being paraded around as if he is a king by by three turtles, and he is just enjoying himself. This ended up, I know you guys all bought this print because it ended up being probably the most, we just talked about an amazing show, and what ended up being probably the most epic DMB show in recent history was this show, and I know you guys picked this up, so it looks awesome in person, and this was probably my favorite of the weekend. And then night 3 we have BioWorks doing also the turtles come back for night 3, or the single turtle comes back along with a frog on his back and a snail and some mushrooms. This one's pretty cool. I like this one too. I actually really liked even more. There was an online, I think, or an artist AP exclusive with a different colorway, and I actually thought that one was cooler color wise. It's almost like got kind of like a blacklight effect on it. So I think most of these are sold out at this point, but I really thought that the artist knocked it out of the park. And I think the most important thing beyond this, you guys just witnessed like this unbelievable show, and then word comes in that at the merch stand after the show, there are about 100, we think, give or take, Chuck Sperry shoreline prints available at the merch stand. I mean, that is like that is insanity. That probably when it's all said and done, we talked last week about Chuck Sperry being something that's collected not only by DMB fans because they were at the show or a fan of the band, but also by art collectors. And so having that available at the stands like after the show, I mean, that's incredible. I know you guys couldn't get up there in time because you were in the pit, but anybody, kudos to you who walked out of the Gorge having just seen an epic show and a Chuck Sperry, in your arms, in your tube. That's that is quite the Friday evening for you, and congratulations. So that wraps up the minute, and I think that just about wraps up the first in our installment of these Gorge shows. Any final words? If you are living under a rock and don't know what's coming, please stay tuned to episode 2, because as I said, probably the most epic DMB show in recent memory. But last thoughts on night 1, Sean, your first Gorge, where's your head at?
I remember thinking to myself, wow, two-step is really strong to close this night, considering that we still have 2 full nights, 2 full shows to go. And we totally did sit around the next day when we went live and talked about how this night 1 was on a very short list of best shows of 2025. Little did we know what we were in stall for the rest of the weekend. But I do think in this moment, as we're recapping this show, this was about as good of a night 1 as you could possibly have. It could be the Gorge. It could be any 2-night stand that the band took part in this year or last year, whatever it may be. I think that this show lives on a pretty short list of what a really, really great night 1 is. Unbelievable way to kick off the weekend. And it left everyone just absolutely buzzing, heading back to the campsites, heading back to decompress and chat about the shows. And then, of course, we have 2 nights to go.
Yeah.
And of course, as I said, if you're living under a rock, the following night is epic, but the following night is also when you are going to get, we talked about old quintessential DMB. The next night you're getting
Bella.
the Flecktones opening up for DMB.
It's unreal.
Like, everybody's like, the anticipation. As I said, this is the most FOMO I've ever had in my life, I think, this weekend.
Aww.
And so this is like, just thinking back to where my head was at, like I'm just ready to explode at this point.
Yeah, I definitely Go ahead.
I was just going to say in a very different way than the way that you
And
guys
the way we
were
were going to
feeling.
explode, right?
Oh, we missed you so much. We really did. We thought about you. We talked about you all the time, the whole time. We really did. I got a lot of questions after, like, so how is this comparing to 2021 when you came to the Gorge Street Show? And it's so funny because it's a fair question because people know I was very public. I didn't really have the best time in 2021, but an alternate format is just not the same as a full band. Like you
course
can't
not.
compare them
Yeah,
at
you
all.
can't. You can't.
This blew 2021 out of the water in my
Yeah.
mind, you know, and it was just night one. So yeah.
All right, Jeanette, any final words for show 300 before we say goodbye?
No, at this point, I thought I could go home, and
Yeah.
to be continued.
It's a good thing you didn't.
Yeah, it's a really good thing that you didn't. And that's a great phrase. We're going to use that right now. To be continued. We will see you for our second Gorge recap for night 2. So we'll see you there.
See you soon.